For the analysis, the speech by Tanstri Professor Dr. Garth Jasmine was an extensive reach regarding mobilizing diversity to achieve academic excellence. From there, it can be seen that a very high percentage of unemployment happens to be among public university graduates with 51%. This proves that English language is not heavily applied in these institutions and that communication skills are rarely exercised. As mentioned by Dami and Albi in 2013, language is vital for communication to happen and to connect with people in our lives. Employability is also relying on high English proficiency, excellent communication skills, work experience, and tremendous hard and soft skills. Let's move to education, where it plays a colossal impact on what is happening to our fresh graduates nowadays. Every freshman dreams of supreme experience when they enter university, but what awaits them is always untold. That's when the education system comes in and sculpts them to become what they are supposed to become, to meet employers' needs. In the speech, he mentioned about how fine and ideal the Malaysia education blueprint is, but will we ever utilize them? That's the question to ponder on. He added, "It's the politics that hindered aspiration from being made a reality." Speaking from the worldview, South Korea and Finland has been regarded as education superpowers by Stanford University, where they are very visioned and committed in producing outstanding graduates. The excellence must be derived from their philosophy of education, aspiration, and national mandate party who rules and governs their education policies impeccably. This depicts the structural functional theory, where the system is made accessible and reachable by authorities so that it can benefit lots of people from multiple social classes. However, he stated that the quality of teachers in Malaysia is dubious, as the process of selection and appointment should be more austere. Hence, the standard of the products which is the students is a reflection of the teachers. Not only that, the lack of autonomy in school is quite alarming, that the headmasters are not granted the power to administer more aspects in making sure the quality of the teachers that come in. They only have to accept the placement of the new teacher with open arms. Up next is racial factor being the challenges to the Bumiputera. As it's quite common to hear, the Chinese is always associated with being rich and wealthy. This is a serious issue that has been lingering around for eternity. People in society normally would classify each professional and career field as purposive to different races. That happens due to the effect of social stratification, where it divides people and their interests into classes of social status. Job opportunities also will get a taste of this social impact, where the privileged will get better job opportunities than the underprivileged. After that, he also discussed about language being a barrier in diversifying education. The lack of use of some languages makes students unable to connect with people socially. PPSMI, or Pengajaran dan Pembelajaran Sains dan Matematik dalam Bahasa Inggeris, also been discussed, and it should be conducted perpetually, as it strengthens students' English language and is beneficial for them for when they enter higher education. As for entrepreneurship, again, it is being associated with a single race conquering the whole arena. Other than that, he commented on how communication and soft skills being monopolized by the non-Bumiputras, and these people are coming from the private institutions. It strengthened his belief in this theory. Lastly, he made a remark on how the Bumiputras are too relying on the government subsidies and not trying to save up and invest in their own education. This raises an issue, as it shows how education is not a top priority to this group of people as compared to non-Bumiputra. For the first fragment of the analysis, it is comprehensible that it connoted that graduates from public universities are less demanded due to their poor command of English and communication skills. Graduates from private institutions are rather proficient in English due to the maximum use of English during college years and have the proclivity to get job offer because of their advantage in communication. Ting et al. 2017 mentioned that employers prioritize good communication skills among new recruits over English proficiency. For the second fragment of the analysis, it discusses on the root-deep problems in our country's administration, which has caused perplexities in implementing what is best for Malaysia's education system. The screening of teachers during the process of appointment is believed to be appalling, thus created a low-quality educators as compared to teachers in South Korea and Finland. Chain of 2008 stated that teachers' teaching and learning execution is still at average level, hence the statement made by Tanstri Professor Dr. Goth Jasmine. Finally, for the last fragment, is a habitual stereotype that people always cue certain occupational fields to certain races, such as huge businesses with the Chinese people, doctors with Indians, and working class level with the Malay people. Language being a perpetual issue in Malaysia, the acquisition of English is always perceived as too privileged among the Malays. The short implementation of PPSMI also causes the lack of English proficiency. Ting et al. 2017 found that individual with high English proficiency is unnecessarily good at communication. Due to that, communication skills are more important than language itself to ensure a high rate of employability among fresh graduates.
After listening to the previous presenters, we now understand the conflict theory that is still happening in our society gives long-term effect to the society's education in different ways. In fact, some parties in the social institutions like government and education are not playing their role correctly. Although there are guidelines and blueprints provided by the government, it is up to the society whether to execute it or not. In Malaysia, most of the schools consist of students from different races, ethnics, religions, and cultural groups. Students from different backgrounds portray different ways of thinking, learning, and communicating. Therefore, schools play an important role in disseminating the different cultural norms and practices among students in both formal curriculum and hidden curriculum. In order to create a conducive multicultural classroom, teachers have multiple roles to be concerned with. Here is where the interactionism theory between the students and the teachers take place. Firstly, teacher as an instructor have to deliver the knowledge to students that is clear and easily understood because students are coming from different cultural backgrounds, so they have their own abilities and learning styles. While delivering the lessons, teachers should be culturally aware in the selection of the appropriate teaching strategies, methods, and techniques based on students' needs, and at the same time, it can create a joyful environment in the classroom. For example, the teacher can incorporate texts that pinpoint the issues that others face because of their race or ethnicity and use this to teach understanding and empathy. Secondly, teacher is definitely an educator. They are the people who guide, encourage, motivate, and inspire the students. The single most important thing you can do to raise socially tolerant and kind individuals is to model the behavior and actions you would like to see from your children. This is because the students are always observing and learn from their teacher's behavior. We can't simply teach values verbally, so the best way is to monitor language and conversations and openly discuss issues in a way respectfully and in a way that validates other people's cultural identities. In a multicultural classroom, teacher can conduct collaborative activities to foster unity in the classroom by requiring them to solve certain tasks together. Other than that, teacher is also a leader, especially in the classroom. He or she is responsible to control the environment to create a very conducive and culture-friendly classroom. Teacher's role is to display good qualities of being a leader, while at the same time, he acts as a cross-cultural communicator. A teacher must treat the students equally regardless of their social background. A leader must ensure that there is good relationship between the teacher and the students, as well as among students. But how? There are few ways, such as addressing their names accurately and play any activities that can strengthen their bond with the students. Other than that, teachers are the agents of socialization and change to create conducive learning environment that is harmonious. In order to do so, A teacher, as an agent of socialization, must be able to create the context for socialization to take place in the classroom, where values and social norms are taught directly or indirectly. In doing the team activity, the teacher must allow the students to mingle freely while having mutual respect towards each other. This can guide students to practice and refine communication skills. Therefore, this could avoid any conflicts that involve racial sentiment between students. Besides, the role as a teacher is to create a change in the behavior of the students to make a positive impact in discipline, academic studies, and co-curricular activities. This means that teachers are able to change the behavior of students by influencing them towards personal success, improvement, and development. For example, from being lazy to being hardworking, from being a low achiever to being a high achiever, or from being passive to being active. How? They need to understand the students and identify their problems using some methods and communication skills to encourage and motivate the students to change for the better. There was an interesting qualitative study by Vandayar in 2016. She wanted to find out how a teacher brings about meaningful educational change in a diverse classroom. So, she interviewed Mrs. Kodze, a white teacher who had 18 years experience teaching in Africa's medium school. Mrs. Kodze is very passionate in teaching. Vendaya found few approaches done by Mrs. Kodze in her teaching. In a class of 40 learners that were diverse in terms of race, gender, culture, ethnic groupings, language, and socio-economic status. Mrs. Kodze believes that in order to create an effective educational change, that change must begin with her. So, let's look how she played a significant role as an active agent of meaningful educational change in her classroom. Firstly, Mrs. Kodze used metaphor to teach on sensitive issues like the concept of racism. She illustrated sequence and then brought in the idea that each person's sequence will be different. Subsequently, she introduced the concept of sameness by emphasizing that if we do the same things every day, it will become very boring. Similarly, if we eat only one type of fruit every day, we will become boring. Secondly, she promoted the beauty of sharing to fill the gap of different socio-economic status of her learners. Then, she became a good listener and displayed empathy to her students to build positive self-esteem among learners while educating and entertaining the learner. She also touched with learners' emotions and linked this real-life experience to new knowledge. She also dispelled the stereotypes that were created in society by emphasizing with the situation by putting themselves in the shoes of another and to think critically and begin to change these stereotypes in society, including issues of race and identities. Well, Mrs. Kodze firmly believed in the saying by Mahatma Gandhi, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." So, this study by Vandaya has proven a statement by Goodman in 1988 that having an understanding of teacher belief structures is important to the improvement of teaching practices.
Although Tansri didn't mention anything regarding pupils or students in the YouTube video, outlining the positive effect of socioculturally diverse education on learners is an unspoken rule of thumb because they're the very product of the set system. These are some of the optimistic implications of said system on learners. That is, if its implementation is done right. Based on several studies and readings, learners who are cross-culturally equipped during schooling years have the tendency of doing better academically and holistically. This is, of course, if the teachers and staff members of the school are also already culturally cultivated. Otherwise, their ignorance will negatively impact the minorities. But I digress. Let's get back on track. The positive effects of socioculturally diverse education environment are: it helps learners to become culturally cultivated or culturally literate. It develops higher levels of critical thinking, general information, and problem-solving skills. It helps promote better interpersonal relationships. It helps heighten learners' cultural awareness, which then helps boost students' self-confidence and self-efficacy. It improves academic performance. And lastly, learners get to undergo a more effective school experience in general. School has an enormous direct impact on learners and their acquisition of knowledge, as mentioned by Not et al. 2017 and Hill and Jones 2018. In the video, Tansri Professor Gove Jasmine stated the stark difference between teacher quality in Malaysia, a developing nation, in comparison to teacher quality in developed countries such as South Korea and Finland. Basically, he suggested for the government to impose a system similar to Finland, where only the crème de la crème of teacher applicants are given a permanent teaching job. He further proposed a national qualifying examination on teacher applicants nationwide as a solution to our lack of teacher quality, although he doubts the government's ability to implement it. Here is a brief comparison on teacher quality in South Korea, Finland, and Malaysia, as mentioned by Tansri. Teachers are regarded highly in South Korea and Finland, unlike in Malaysia. In fact, there is a striking difference in teacher qualification in Malaysia and Finland, whereby every teacher in Finland has to have a master's degree prior to being accepted into the teaching post. The question remains whether Malaysia should adopt Finland's method in selecting teachers, or at least made it compulsory for every teacher to have a bachelor's degree, like South Korea. Teachers can have an astounding impact on learners' academic performance, as mentioned by Not et al. 2017 and Hill and Jones 2018. Therefore, it is high time the government see to the issue reasonably and practically, by perhaps greatly reducing the number of unnecessary paperwork for teachers, as teachers are not clerks. Teachers are educators and should only focus on educating learners. The amount of paperwork that's assigned to teachers these days is distressing and appalling. Aside from that, Tansri also mentioned about the difference in school culture amongst the three aforementioned countries, with regards to the amount of homework and schooling hours in a day. In general, Malaysia has an average amount of homework given to learners and fewer schooling hours, whereas South Korea and Finland's education systems are polar opposite of each other. On the aspect of assessment, Malaysia is slowly trying to adopt a system similar to Finland's. Whether or not the outcome is favorable is yet to be known. Perhaps Malaysia can adopt a system that's intermediate to that of South Korea and Finland, as South Korea is too extreme in its drive for success. Hence, the high rate of suicide and alcoholism, as mentioned by Tansri. And Finland is just too accommodating and flexible for the Malaysian society, in our opinion. With that being said, we thank you for watching.